So I was at the University of Pittsburgh and I was working on my PhD in epidemiology. And epidemiology is statistically based, and so it's pretty difficult, and it's really difficult for someone that's not mathematically inclined. I'm not mathematically inclined. I had a lot of trouble. And so every day I'd wake up with this burden on my heart that the people that I was working with and studying and doing this research would figure out that I was a bit of a fraud and that I didn't know what I was doing. And so to cope, I ran. And I'd always liked to run, so it wasn't a hard thing for me. But I ran a lot, and I started to train for the Pittsburgh marathons. And each year I would try to run the marathon while I was at Pitt. And I think this was my second or third marathon, and I was running, and I was actually running with a friend, and about the 15th mile, my nose started to bleed a lot. And it bled probably for 2 or 3 miles. And back then I always wore a bandana. In fact, I still wear a bandana. It takes me back to my hippie roots. But I had this bandana, and it was filled up with blood. And I continued to run though, and I thought I could run through this, and finally my nose stopped bleeding. But about the 20th mile in a marathon is where you start to hit the wall. And that's just a physiological problem with energy, and I had another problem, is I'd bled so much that I became extremely dehydrated. And I started to stagger around the 20th mile, and the people in the race took hold of me and brought me into a medical tent, and they started to administer to me because I was really dehydrated from the loss of blood. And I drank a little bit, and then when they weren't looking, I slipped out the back and I started running again for the rest of the way. And again, I don't recommend this to anyone. You should never do this, but I'd trained really hard, and that marathon was so important to me that I had to finish it, because it was sort of the way I was coping and the way I was dealing with just an incredible challenge in my life, dealing with a PhD that I just truly wasn't qualified to complete. And as I got close to that final mile, I'm literally staggering, and I refused to stop. I was not going to stop, because that finish line, it just meant too much to me, and I just had to keep moving, and so I did. And when I crossed that finish line, I collapsed. When I was brought back to my feet, I suffered for a long time. And almost for a year, that really impacted my immune system, because I really did way more damage to my body than I should have. And so again, don't do what I just did, except finish. One of my things is I always emphasize is that you've got to finish. And sometimes it means just keep moving 1 foot forward, even in whatever the challenge is. And for me, I was 4 years in a program that I really didn't enjoy. And I was really stressed, and I'm not a stressed person, and I had great anxiety. And I just figured if I kept moving forward, then I would be okay. And I did that with that marathon. I took one more step, and then one more step, and then one more step, and I saw that finish line, and I was going to finish. And I did the same thing when I got to the PhD. I did what I needed to do. I took one more step, and I defended that dissertation. And the day I passed was one of the great moments of my life, because I knew I overcame a great challenge. So when things get tough, and you're really feeling anxious, you're really feeling rough, just keep stepping, keep moving forward, because you can do it, and it will change your world. That's what's on my mind today.